German to be part of it tonight. I know you now for a long time through your judging in Wellington and through our personal meetings all over the world where you were judging, and we had from time to time a chance to chat and have a coffee. And because what I read and what I heard from your series, I was the one who said, yeah, well, why don't we not also from Germany talk a little bit about history and development of dressage?
Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to silence everybody. And hold on a second, Michael. So can you hear me now, Michael?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, so we can start now. Michael, thank you very much for accepting this invitation. It's an honor for me to have you here. We will do this as a very informal conversation about the history and the development of dressage, and I think that I could not find a better person to do this. So thank you very much for accepting this invitation. We have many people coming in, but we will start now. And well, I would like to start by asking you if you want to comment a little bit about the old masters and the old times in dressage. I'm sure you have read a lot, and probably you heard from your father a lot of histories, and you have to read a lot of books. So what are your thoughts about the old masters, and how do you compare that to what we're doing now?
I mean, if we look back to the old masters, I think it is quite interesting to talk about three different time periods. The first time period is starting with Xenophon, going back to short before the Second World War, then going the times after the Second World War, like in the late 80s, beginning 90s, and then up to today.
Okay, good. What do you think about the influence of like the Spanish riding school in our sport today? And you know, what happened with them? They were competing at the Olympics at the beginning, then they decided to stop competing. But for sure, we've had many trainers coming out of the Spanish riding school. Would you like to comment something about that? Sorry.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, now I can hear you well. Yes.
So my technique broke down, so I don't know how long you got what I said.
I cannot see you now. Now you're live again.
Okay, so sorry for that, but this broke down. So we go from there. Sorry for that. So I couldn't hear what you said, and I don't know how long you heard me. What I wanted to say is we make a division into three time periods. And when we start with Xenophon, about, I don't know exactly, 400 something years before Jesus Christ was the first founder, what was written about riding and about the so-called classical riding and the art of riding. That was his main sentence. The art of riding was based on reward and punishment. Oh, punishment? When you hear punishment, you think nowadays it sounds cruel. That time, for him, punishment was when you stop rewarding a horse, you know?
Yeah.
And he was the first one who tried, in German, it's in the translation is light riding, that when a horse has the physical ability that then comes the light riding by not aggressive, by more feeling about looking to the also psychology of the horse. And that was totally new, because at that time, nobody was thinking about piaffe, passage, and pirouettes, which was mainly just, horses were used in the armies and in the war situation. But from that was the first written and traditional belief that there's some more in horses than just figures and than just using them in the cavalry. The German cavalry is a red line until today, and the European and the worldwide cavalry, I must say, a red line for the whole riding of today. But that's why I would like to make a break before the Second World War. Let's go through a couple of these guys and what they say. I mean, we cannot tonight talk about everyone and his sentence, but some are very important. Because La Guérini, I don't know, my French is not good, but in 1730 something, he was the first one who wrote also about gymnastics, about building muscles, and not about just pleasing the people with, as I said, piaffe, passage. And from there on, the French influence really up to the Second World War was very, very big. From there, we had, of course, German, we had Steinbrecht, we had Ludwig Seeger, we had later from France again, James Phillis, for example, was born in England, but connected to the to the French writing. So if you would ask me, Cesar, the question, Michael, what is the main red line from the time, from the different masters from the different times? There are two things. One is riding the horse forward and make the horse straight. Steinbrecht, Gymnasium of the Horse. And the other one is that all the masters try to explain that the impulsion comes from behind, that we would call it nowadays the motor, the engagement, that everything starts from behind. And then you had different influences. You had influences, especially from the French masters, fine riding, fine contact. At that time, especially in Germany, it was more like too much pressure and Unterwerfung. Was heißt Unterwerfung? I don't know the word really in English. When you first really try to punish your horse, that horse is giving almost up, I would say, in my English words. And then it comes the fine riding. That's what they disagreed. And if you go back to the tradition, we have 3 riding schools, and I was lucky when I was young that I could go through all 3. If you had the Cadre Noir and Saumur, you had the Spanish riding school in Vienna, as we all know, and you had in Jerez the Andalusian school, the Royal Andalusian, how do you say it in English? You know it better, Cesar. We had in Portugal, of course, Nuno Oliveira is one of the biggest riders from Portugal, who was a master in his time and the school he found. But nowadays, these 3 that I just mentioned, Saumur, Vienna, Jerez, are the traditional ones. And if you would ask me which was the best, I must say, was in each of the schools for 1 week. Yeah, funny. I was in Vienna when I was 19. My father sent me there. I was at that time European champion of young riders and second in the World Cup final in Sertogenbosch, and my last name was Klimke. Do you know what they did? They put me on a lunch line for 1 week. I was allowed to watch the big riders there, Piaf Passage, in the morning. And then they took me for 45 minutes on the Langschlein and made riding trot without stirrups. I asked, no, I was just joking and kidding, but it was a very, very good experience that they gave me as a young boy to really explain the importance of seat aids, the important really to have balance in your body. And then comes later, of course, the way how to make Piaf Passage. But this is what I like there really most. When you ask me, Michael, in Cadre Noir, in Saumur, that was more the classical riding a horse through. They didn't have the real quality horses that time when I was there 30 years ago. But what was very impressive was the discipline. When we were joking here, we have German discipline. No, there was really a strict line, a strict order, and then a light contact. Not so much about spectacular Piaf Passage, about spectacular movement. Working on basic. Say in Jerez, you have a different type of horses. I had the chance 2002 to be there during the World Championships in Jerez for 2 weeks. When you see the school there, the combination, dancing and horse together, music, atmosphere, that needs a very, very specific relationship between rider and horse, and really light aids, that it looks just beautiful. Not so much about, once again, what you want to see, maybe dynamic extended trot and extended canter, but you want to see harmony between rider and horse. And sorry for talking so long, but I just wanted to try to summarize from a lot of books that I was reading about the old masters, about the old times, about the French, the German, the Spanish culture of riding, of what we are doing today. And if you would ask me, what are the main points? It's gymnastic for the horses. It's activating the hind legs and making a horse straight and forward. And then it's light aids. My father later said always a sentence which I try to follow, which is still true today when I talk with other people. He said, when a rider sits on a horse and a spectator who has no knowledge about riding says, how do you do this? It looks that you do nothing. It looks so light. Then Dressage is right. But when you see a rider moving and doing and then Dressage is not on its highest level. The harmony between rider and horse, and it looks elegant. And then we can go into details, blah, blah, figures, whatever. But the main of riding is this really close relationship between rider and horse and the harmony, the throughness, the suppleness. That's important. For me, not the one is the best who has the highest leg in Piaf Passage or the biggest extended trot. No, the harmony between rider and horse. And I think through all the times what I read with the old masters, that they step by step tried to write about this, and there were totally different times. The horses were used in the army, in the cavalry, in the war, and then dressage was to please the kings and the royals and the men, and not to start competing. Start competing was 19 in the first Olympic Games in the century, 19, what was it, 8 or 12, Stockholm. That was the first time we talk about really competing again against each other. And then you can see, okay, sorry, I was talking too much in a row, Cesar. I know
Michael,
you get nervous.
let me ask you a question. Nowadays, we see a lot of women competing, actually more women than men. And
Yes.
when you watch all the old videos or the old pictures of the Spanish riding school, or the pictures and videos from Somir or from the Jerez, the Andalusian riding school, most of them were men. When you were there, like your first time in 2000, there were already a lot of women training in Vienna or not? Or is this
No.
recent?
Well, when I was there in 1990, the first time for that week, there were only men. I was also in the same year in Cadre Noir, only men, and 2002 in Jerez. I think in Jerez there are still only men doing it. And yeah, you talk now about nowadays, the last 20 years. It started actually in 1988 when a young girl, her name was Nicole Uphoff, came with the horse Rembrandt. Yeah.
Yeah.
Winning against the sport of the old men. Of course, Christine Stückelberger, Lisa Linsenhoff, we had women winning before, but there was a big change until nowadays. And of course, my personal hero, Isabel Wert, for a long time still and forever, when she was bringing up the horses today, that's nowadays. And now we are looking for boys to go in the pony riding schools. We look for men to go in the dressage. But yeah, I think it was long ago. In the old days we were talking about, it was cavalry, it was generals, it was, yeah, it was.
That was the other question I wanted to ask you. I mean, last century, and I would say until 1950 or 60, in most of the countries around the world, dressage was done by the cavalry school, by the army, and it's not the case anymore. What would you like to say about this changing of the sport from the army to the civilians doing it? And if you think that in some countries that's still the case, where dressage is important in the cavalry schools.
I think the influence is very, very big and very, very important even until today. Because now you have the next or the over next or the over next generation of trainers. But if you talk to them, we just talk privately open with our friend Uli Kasselmann, who goes back to Köhler, goes back to every trainer today, I think, learned from somebody. If you look Teilinger from Otto Lörke, and it goes back, and my father from Otto Lörke, Gustav Rau, and still up to today, Isabel Wert, of course, through Dr. Schulden-Baumer. So I think the first and the biggest influence was still there from the army into the next generations. And then we had the riding clubs. Riding clubs are so important, which are now dying in Germany as well. In the riding clubs, we had a lot of older searchers as riding instructors. Started with a pony. I started in a pony club. And this all goes away more into private business stables. If we talk about commerce of the sport, that's another topic, and development. For example, 1982, my father was winning with Ahlerich in Aachen the Grand Prix. He got 1,000 German marks. 1996, I was writing about the Olympic Games from Atlanta. Before was the Deutsche Bank Dressage Prize, and Isabel Wert won with Gigolo 100,000 German marks. In a period of 14 years, that changed. So I think that's also a big influence to nowadays that we have commercial influence, and that a normal riding club, I still try to do it here as the president of the Reiterverein St. Georg, the club that my father found. We have vaulting, we have beginner riders on the Langschlein, we have handicapped riders, a riding group from the handicapped school. We try to combine, and then we have riders like my sister, Hel Lange-Hahnberg, Belly Balkenhol, they all compete for our club. But to really get the group together from beginner riders, vaulting, everything together, and then there comes then the few top riders, based on the riding club system we have.
I would like to say something. Dressage in South America, for instance, has had an enormous development because of the exchange between like the Chilean and Argentinian army with the German army. So the German army sent cavalry school officers that train officers in Argentina and Chile, and those were the ones that were sent afterwards to all the rest of the countries to teach. So we also had a lot of cavalry officers' influence, and that was very important. But what you're saying now, I think it's very important because we see changes in the sport so quick, like in the last 30 years, the sport has changed so much. So I would like, if we could talk a little bit about that, like how everything has changed in the Olympics and like from the times of Anki towards recent times. I think that would be interesting for the people.
Yeah. If I talk too much, you just stop me, but I would like to start from the Olympic Games in Berlin, 1936.
Okay.
There's a book I have it here prepared to show you. That's from 1936 from Gustav Grau.
Okay.
And this book, you could publish still a lot of pages for today. So starting with the tests, yeah?
Yes.
At the time, a Grand Prix test, 17 minutes.
Oh
and if you
God.
don't make it happen in 17 minutes, per beginning second, you get half a point minus later. So they gave already points. It was 3 judges. There were 30 competitors and 9 teams. We talk about Olympic Games 1936. And the test was very difficult. I mean, I was reading it and try it. For example, you make 4 times, 3 times, 2 times, 1 time with 1 horse and 1 test. And then you make the last on the circle 3 screws once. So, and then Gustav Rau was talking about the judging. He said, you know, at that time, the German judge had the Germans 1, 2, 3. The French judge had whatever, about the same. It was national judging. But he explained it in such an understandable way that no criticism for the judges. He said it's normal when a judge sees in his country from his riding art, especially the French art, and of course he would see the horses here a little bit more in front, but then, and this you can publish today, he said the judges have very big responsibilities, the way they give the marks. Hier wegen gegen die Reiterei, that's Germany, to go against wrong ways of training. And if, I don't know if the translation was really right, but that was his main point, that the responsibility of the judges is there with the way they're giving the marks is really to influence the training system. And before the Second World War, it was the French and the Germans' way of talking about the neck position. It's the absolute highest pole, a little bit rounder. And if you read all these really nowadays funny discussions, understand more and more if you read this, that at that time, very, very good experts were really making their thoughts about dressage. And in that book, 1936, Gustav Rau is writing about scratching the highest and the lowest, and why he is against it. Because he said there will be average judging, the same argument we have 2020.
Yes, big
When
argument.
it comes to average. And we talk about 1936. I will make a copy and send you per WhatsApp once the page in German. Maybe we can translate it somehow. But I bring it with to Florida. But this is one of my favorite books. And going back to history, 20,000 spectators in Berlin watching dressage. Then, okay, war came, then it came back to a couple of difficult situations, and then the Games 56 started again in Stockholm. After the war, the Swedish riders were good on the influence of Gustav Niblaeus, who was not only later the head judge, but he was really standing for the classical principles.
It was a wonderful.
Like Gustav Rau.
He was a wonderful person. My first judges seminar in 78 was with him.
Well, yeah, so good. And then going back to the development we had 3 riders, we had 5 judges. 3 riders per team, 5 judges. For actually up to when it changed then 92 in Barcelona, and it took a while to understand the changing of the system for the riders. You suddenly had a reserve rider, which everybody knew and wanted to have, but before was always no, only 3, and 3 have to count. And the same discussions we have nowadays. I mean, you ask me about the new format for the Olympic Games in Tokyo when they hopefully happen. I think it's a disaster. It's a disaster for the sport. A lot of generations were fighting for the 4th and reserve rider, and now we have a totally new game and a totally new sport. For me, not understandable. Let me explain a little more why. I said about the 17 minutes from the test. Now we talk about shorter. We have a 6-minute test in the Grand Prix. And still, we discuss 2020, shorter. Our sport is not based on short-time media spectacular. We need walk, trot, and canter. We need the rein back for the suppleness. We need all the traditional movements in the test. And the best test is still the Grand Prix Special, because that wasn't changed too much. Okay, you start right instead of left before, but all the other tests now, changing the 2s and 1s, separate them. I don't know. I don't understand why this is shortened so much when you have a lot of tradition and when you have a lot of from good old people, good knowledge and a good system that worked. So coming back to a good system that worked, maybe we talk a little bit about the freestyle. The freestyle, when it started to be introduced first time at the Olympics, 1996.
But Michael, let's finish what you started, which was what was very interesting. Everybody, like the federations and especially the media, they tried to shorten the Grand Prix, and there have been some efforts from the FEI to create a shorter version of the Grand Prix, even shorter than what we have now. What are your thoughts about those efforts? And you've seen the shorter versions of the Grand Prix that have been created. What do you think about those?
I think it's definitely the wrong way, and it's not in the tradition of our sport, and it is not for the welfare of our sport and the horses. Because I will try to explain it in short sentences. We have several movements, yes, but we also have the proof of other things like suppleness and not just quick. And just for the media, why are we more in the media when it's shorter? We cannot do it like jumpers in 1 minute. We cannot go in the center line and end up at the end of the center line. That's not our sport. Our sport is based more on more figures that need more time, that you can present the horses well. We cannot do it shorter. Now the Grand Prix with the 6 minutes, for me, also too short. Already too short. And there's still no argument that I can follow. The worst argument that the people bring in is the IOC wants it. That's totally bullshit, sorry. The IOC, I remember before Athens, the Olympic Games, Thomas Bach, now the president of the IOC, was that time the German president of the National Olympic Committee. I knew him through my father. Then it was said, oh, the IOC wants only 3 riders per nation, more flags. I really like Mariette Witthages and I respect her for her effort to go worldwide and create more flags. But then I called Thomas Bach and said, Mr. Bach, can you tell me why the IOC wants to have only 3 riders in dressage? He said, Michael, that's not true. We want to have 220 horses for 3 disciplines, jumping, dressage, and 3-day event. If you ride a quadrille, or if you have 3, 4, or 5, we just want 220 horses, that's it. And now that it always is said, oh, dressage is going out of the Olympic sport. That's bullshit. We were in Stockholm and in Athens at the first games after the new founding Olympic Games. Dressage is huge. Equestrian sport is huge. And we are not going because of the IOC out of it. The IOC wants the equestrian sport in the Olympic family. That's the truth, nothing else.
Now that we have your father on the screen, what do you think was his greatest victory, or where he was more proud with his quality?
That's hard to say. I think what my sister and I learned from him most were not the biggest victories. It was more in the daily training and a lot of sentences where he always tries to show us there's no bad horse, there's only bad riding, and you are, as a rider, have to be responsible to get the best out of every horse. I can tell you one story. When I was studying law in Frankfurt at the Schafhof, the mother from Ann-Kathrin Linsenow, Lord Linsenow, she invited me after the Barcelona Olympic Games so I could ride there and study. And I came on the 24th, Christmas Eve, home to the stable. My father was riding, and he asked, do you have riding clothes? I said, no, I mean, I was in jeans. I have a new horse, you have to ride it. It was a 4-year-old horse. Oh, okay, put some caps on, jumped on him. That time we had no helmet, of course. Nobody rode with a helmet. I couldn't get this horse through the pole. It was a monkey, a strong monkey. So I was on the circle. I didn't get this horse through the pole. My father was riding another horse, and he watched it for quite a while. And suddenly he said, I show you. He jumped off his horse. He jumped on this 4-year-old horse, and on the circle for half an hour, trot, walk, trot, walk, canter, trot, canter, transitions. My father was sweating. We were late at my mother and the family for lunch for 1 hour. But Christmas, that was Christmas for him, because he could always explain me, did you see? Because at the end, the horse was chewing through the pole. That was one of the stories just to try to explain his thinking. He was maybe not the best in judging the quality of the horse, but he was really had so many different horses, gelding, mares, stallions, but he always was, for the horse, trying to find the button for this horse. And yeah, there's, as I said, there's no bad horse, there's just bad riding. And we laugh a little bit about it sometimes, but this respect from the animal, respect from the horse, and really, yeah. You can ride hard, never rude, was also one of his sentences. You have to have discipline and you have to work a horse, because also, not that we go here in the wrong direction, where sometimes we talk just about giving sugar and suddenly they win a Grand Prix. Horses are athletes and they must be trained like athletes. And with all the training nowadays and in the older days, it's hard work, but it must be always fair to the horse. And I think a lot of, especially from the older generation, from the trainer, they really showed us that and gave us that as an example.
That's a really wonderful explanation. And well, you've had really wonderful riders in Germany. And why don't we talk a little bit about, there was a time where Germany was winning always and always had the best riders. And then you had your neighbors, the Dutch, coming in and winning.
Mm-hmm.
What happened at that time in Germany? Was there a change in the riding, or?
I think when you just have the picture from Ankie van Grunsven, I think it's not that Germans got worse. I think that overall worldwide, the quality got better. In Germany, okay, Holland, in Sweden, in Denmark, that's general and way of development. When my father was German world champion '82 in Lausanne, there were 12 horses in the final and maybe just 3 of them could do a good Piaffe Passage. Nowadays, worldwide, everybody can do Piaffe Passage. You are not winning with Piaffe Passage. But talking about Ankie, I am really, really a fan from her as a person and as a rider. And for me, it was really a pleasure to watch her riding. She had a different way of riding, more focused on spectacular Piaffe Passage, maybe not the last throughness or what the spectacular Bonfire, Salinero, they were so spectacular in Piaffe Passage, but yeah, she had a different way of doing it. And what I didn't like was this stupid German discussion about Rollkur and hyperflexion. That's bullshit again. Sorry to say that trick. It's not about where the neck is. Yeah. Now everybody just looks, oh, if the horse is too short, that's cruelty or what. No, you must see the overall picture. And can you ask me this question? Can you ask me answer me a question? When somebody goes 3 Olympic Games, like Salinero with Ankie, 2 like Bonfire, both horses get old and healthy. Is that cruel? If you see Isabel Wehr's horses, they are all getting old and good. And now a lot of people, your Bartels said it. I must also tell you another story later when we talk about freestyle about your Bartels. But your Bartels was the one already 20 years ago who said, we had before horse people, now we have a lot of people with horses. And
that's really,
I think that's a little bit the change of the attitude, that now look about the worse always, or about a bad thing, about cruelty. I am long enough in the sport, really. I won my first Grand Prix in 1988, and I don't believe that riders that ride dressage or jumping or 3-day event on a higher level are cruel to horses. Okay, sometimes that's human beings. You want more, you get excited, and you are simply on the wrong way because it's not working. You don't have success with every horse. You want to do it, but that people outside from the horse world just judge a neck position and say, oh, that's cruel and that's wrong training, and that's not following classical principles. I read all these books. What is classical? I cannot tell you a real definition of what's classical. Did Anki write classical? Was Totila classical with Edward Gall? I got goosebumps, or how do you say, when I saw Totilas?
Yes, I think
unbelievable.
And,
yeah.
and he had a tremendous impact in the world for dressage. I think it was a different step, because everybody wanted to see Totilas and want to see the spectacular movements.
Yeah. But before, if we talk one more time about highlights, and when you said biggest victory of my father, 84 in Los Angeles, there were 30,000 spectators, and when he made this lap of honor with one hand and 99 one-time changes, wow, there was that time. Yeah. When you saw Rembrandt with a young girl, Nicole Uphoff, he was dancing Piaf Passage. If you look at nowadays, you say, maybe it's not that spectacular, but I saw her live. I was fascinated, really fascinated. And then after that, when you see Isabel coming with Gigolo, Anki van Grunsman with this Bonfire, when you then see if we go to the World Championships in Aachen 2006, I will never forget that moment in my life when in the main jumping stadium, it was, I don't know if you were there or saw it, the big stadium was full, and you saw on the small screen the marks. And then on the last center line, on the last long side in the special, she got in front of Anki with that time with Satmo. And this was riding, and then the whole stadium of Aachen with 50,000 spectators, that atmosphere. And then she rode the last center line, Isabel. That was one of the highlights of my, what I saw in dressage. And still, of course, when you go back to Vallejo now, was very good. When I see Vallagold nowadays dancing in Piaf Passage, and okay, then other people, this horse has not enough extended trot, or there the walk is short, or the neck is here and there. I think we must go back also to the positive thinking about our sport and the positive attitude. We not criticize it all the time and go positive. Remember the good things and not always talk after class is done. Oh, did you see this one in the half pass? Did you see this one made a mistake here and there? No. You asked me before everybody was attended. Yesterday I was at the CDI at Kasselmann's at Hagen. It was a good special, and it was just enjoyable to see. And I'm not going then back home and on the way I talk to my wife and say, this was bad, this was bad, this was bad. No, positive. This is what I like. Sorry. Now, Cesar, it's your turn.
Well, then we have seen like new generations coming up, and I think you have in Germany like young riders, all the ponies, the juniors, and like from this family, we've seen wonderful performances. That's great what you achieved with the younger generations in Germany. I mean, like this rider here, how old was he when he made the German Olympic team for Rio? 20 something?
Sönke Bodenberger?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think 20, 25 maybe. He's not too old, huh?
Yeah.
But look to Helen Langerhahn, Christina Spree, we had some coming up. But I think it's not only in Germany, it's worldwide that the next generations are coming. And this is good. What I like that we talk sometimes about, don't forget the history. If you know the history and the development, you can react for the future. You can make the future. And let's see where it all goes to. I have 2 more points I want to talk to.
Let's talk about the freestyles, and I want to ask you a question. I think that the Americans have have gone a step ahead with the music and the choreography and all that, and they've done quite some good performances, and the quality of the freestyles and the degree of difficulty have improved a lot over the years. Why don't we talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. You know, starting the freestyle, we must first mention the name Jupp Bartels. When he introduced the World Cup in Dressage, which was Grand Prix and freestyle, first time in Essen, 1985 or 84, I don't know exactly which year he started it. Yeah, it was more like a circus. In the beginning, we had really some funny stories. Then, for example, to the final, Dominique Desmé from France, she came with her own orchestra to play the music live when she was riding. You know? And yeah, it was more a little entertainment here and there, and nobody knew. And Jupp Bartels was really the one who introduced it, that it became in first time in the Olympics in Atlanta, 1996. I remembered it was 93 or 94 when the discussion was about it. I was treasurer of the IDRC that time, and the IDRC, the FEI committee, the organizer committees, we had a meeting in Aachen. A lot of riders say, no way, no freestyle. That's ruining our sport, and it's not classical, and we don't want to have this. Then there was Eric Lette at that time as the highest FEI judge from the committee. And he said, yeah, I'm so and so. I'm pro and con, and try to give both sides the arguments. And then the one who made it happen was Jupp Bartels. I will never forget. He jumped in and he said, I am not so. I'm straight for the freestyle, and it will. And he really persuaded, that we had the Olympic Games 1996 in Atlanta with freestyle. And look to the sport nowadays, without the freestyle, a lot of interest would have gone from dressage. I think it's much better for the spectators, for the audience, and it's improving now with the new choreography that Katharina Wüst introduced with the scoring, and it's developing still developing. And then if come back to your question, I always loved Anki's freestyles, very easy. A lot of times the Dutch freestyles were from the degree of difficulty, a little easier, but maybe a little smoother. When you see now, okay, my hero still is also in the freestyles, Isabel Wert, but when you see then the really difficult freestyles and the change from the last 25 years or 24 years, you see a big development in the quality of music, in the choreography, in really riding from point to point. It changed a lot, but in a positive way. And when we see, like, if it's not only in Wellington where we are, it's in all over the world, I think, that the freestyle evenings, or if it's in Aachen in the morning, these are the highlights of our sport.
Yes, people is, like, I would say all over around the world, people is really going for the freestyles, and usually the tickets in those big competitions in Europe where they have jumping and dressage at the same time, the tickets for the dressage freestyle are sold earlier than the jumping.
Yeah. But like we have in Münster here, the show, I'm the vice president from the Westfälischer Reiterverein. In front of the castle, we have Saturday evening freestyle on the same place and the jumping is. It's the highlight of the whole show. When the weather is fine, the castle, the lights, and then we have good rides. This attracts people. With the freestyle, you can attract people. And yeah, I must say, there was Jupp Bartels who made it, and he still should get more honor and credit about it, because he really pushed everybody in the right moment. And if you were there, these discussions where yeah, riders like my father also was against it, and a lot of others said no, it will stop. And the old trainers said no, that's the end of dressage. That's circus. We don't want that. And now, 2020, we cannot have the sport without the freestyles.
Yes, I totally agree. So what do you see in the future coming in dressage? What do you think we're going to see in the next 10 years?
I'm very disappointed about the Olympic format. I hope really that they will change it again. I mean, it is for all disciplines. Like my sister in 3-day event, they have 3 riders. They have no one that's not counting. In jumping in the Nations Cup, it's not 4 anymore, just 3. And then in dressage, that you have 3, and maybe you can just 1 send into the individual thing. I'm skeptic. I hope, you know, it comes back to the good format we had for many years. And this is one thing, for example, with judging. Sorry, Cesar, to say this.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
After Gustav Niblaeus, we had Wolfgang Nigli from Switzerland, the 70s and beginning 80s. There were 5 judges. He was the president of the grand jury. They were judging 1 time together in Aachen, and then they had a line. They were discussing it, and there were not so many differences in percentages and in places. Then it came to the idea, oh, we need not 5 judges, we need 7. We need rotation. We need discussion. I think a little bit more dictatorship in this democracy of judging, that we have a following line. Because then Eric Lette, he was, and he still is, for me, a top horseman, trainer, rider. But he was opening it to a lot of discussions with everybody. He wanted to please everybody. Then we had Mariette Witthages, who was flying around the world, more flags, more flags. But when you have more flags, you have more quantity versus quality. And then nowadays you have a situation where we are still 7 judges at the big Nation Cups and the championships, with a lot of percentage differences and a lot of frustration by the judges, riders, trainers, by everybody, not only by the riders, trainers. And it's hard to get a clear line back. And I really don't want to say that somebody makes this on purpose, not at all. Everybody tries his best. The riders, the trainers, the judges, the grooms, everybody. Yeah. But it's really hard to, because that was your question, the future of dressage. If we have these big differences in percentages, placing orders, it is really, that's harder to sell the sport with these results than if we talk about 4 minutes, 5 minutes, 6 minutes Grand Prix. We should stay and we should be stubborn to say minimum is 6 minutes, better 8 minutes for Grand Prix, and go back that the championship judges at least judge together in Aachen in one show. We have a president of the ground jury who can also say, listen, we need a line. And I know the conversation about different points, that at H and E and B, it looks all different. That's totally true. I met yesterday at Kasselmann's my friend Beatrice Bürchler. She was judging for a long time, and we were laughing a lot about the old days and the old times.
Wonderful.
Yeah, wonderful lady, really. And she also said, yeah, it's hard with these different positions. And we must live, of course, with differences. That's why we have not 1 judge, we have 5 or now 7. But a little bit more together, a little clearer line would be for me, for my opinion, very important. To sell the sport, to understand the sport, and to know. You know, when you have 5% different, tell me you want to see the half pass in passage rhythm, then I write the half pass in passage rhythm. If you want to see the 2-time changes in medium, can I try it? You know, it's more that so the riders and trainers have to know what really needs to be done. Sorry,
No,
But
no,
we talk frank and open.
no. I think that's very important. But talking about development, I would also like to say that if you see judging from 50, 40, 30, 20 years ago to now, differences are less, and education of judges have improved a lot. Remember that in the old days they didn't even have exams, and they didn't even have handbooks or clearer training of judges. I think have improved. We still have difference, we have to work on that, but I think there has been an improvement of that as well. If you see, there has been an improvement in the quality of horses, in the quality of riding, also in the quality of judging. I think there are still holes, there are still problems, but I think everybody's trying hard to get there.
Yeah,
my opinion.
And no, that's of course one of the points, that the result that the sport luckily is more global worldwide, and we have more horses, more Grand Prix riders, more Grand Prix judges, like we had about the times we just talked half an hour ago. That's a very good development in my point of view, and not that it's an old small club. I don't want to say that, but I still think the discussions we had now since a couple of years already, what can we all together do better to get a clearer, straighter line? One other question to you. We were talking about, also not you, new for forever. I'm organizing, for example, this big show in Münster. I invite the judges that I like to have a beer with. Now I make 10 shows here at my barn, from young horses, Bundeschampionat qualifier up to Grand Prix. I invite the judges I like. Is it the way that the organizer should invite the judges? A lot of people say yes, because when you pay the bills, you want to invite the people, and not that the FEI does that. On the other hand, if you have the 5-star judges, that you have a group of 20 or 25, I don't know, let's
44 something now.
Okay. But then that the FEI says, okay, you go to the show from Klimke in Münster, or you go to Poland, or you go to Singapore, or you go to Melbourne, or, the judges just say, this weekend I'm free, and the FEI sends the judges around. I don't know which system is better, but a lot of people discuss it at the moment. Which is the better system? Organizer should invite, or the FEI should find the system?
Okay, my answer to that is that you have to feel on the organizer's shoes as well. If you're an organizer and you want to have a good show, you usually would invite. It's like when you're throwing up a party, like you want your party to be successful, so you will hire the best band that you think that will be the best for your guests. So I think it's important that the organizers have the possibility of hiring the judges that they want. I think that's important, because they're going to do their best to hire what they consider the best judges. Of course, I also understand, and this is coming from the judges' point of view. So many will say, well, if I'm never invited to Europe, or if I'm never invited to North America, or if I'm never invited to Asia, then I will never get the experience. So here comes this idea of the FEI saying what judges should go to different shows. But this brings an additional problem, is that, let's say I'm in South America and you are in Münster, and you have a lot of 5-star judges near you that, flying wise, don't cost you a lot. I mean, they don't even have to fly. You have in Germany, from driving distance, very, very good judges. So the organizer will say, well, I don't want to bring a guy from Australia or a guy from Chile or Brazil or whatever, because it's going to increase the cost of the show tremendously. And that's another point that you have to take into consideration. There are some competitions, like for instance, in North America, the North American Youth Championships. Sometimes we see those are the judges are appointed directly by the FEI, and sometimes you see, you know, there are one from Australia, one from Europe, the rest from the Americas, which makes it a good combination. I think we should try to work on a mixed system where the FEI has some slots and the organizer have some other slots in order to allow for new and upcoming judges to get experience, and at the same time the organizers making sure that the best available judges are going there, you know, to do their job. It's a difficult, you asked me a very difficult one, but I think the only way is try to do a combination. And for sure, for the big competitions, and I'm talking about World Cup, Europeans, regional games, and of course the Olympics and the World Championships. Honestly, I think the FEI is doing a very good job with the appointment of the judges, and mostly no big difference are showing. But I would like to say that whenever you go to a horse show, if there are no differences among the judges, nobody says one thing. If there is one difference, then
everybody talks.
Weird, you know? But we see that, in my opinion, less and less and less. I saw the results from Hagen yesterday, for instance. They did a wonderful job.
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah, but also some difference on, if you saw it on the first day, between 74 and 68, when 2 5-star judges sit next to each other. Yeah, you can say overall the ride was winning, but a lot of people, were talking about it. But to just to your point, I think
those results. I saw the results from yesterday, but you also said something that is very important. Sometimes the differences are not with the 3 or 4-star judges or the 2-star judges, but among the 5-star judges. And well, this happens. I have to say, I remembered last winter, this winter in Florida, there was a European rider, and I was sitting by the side, and every time that horse came to my exactly where I'm sitting in this picture that I'm judging you, there I was sitting at that position, and every time the horse came from going to the left, show me the tongue in my side, and I was quite sure the other ones couldn't see it. Then my score was really low. But that happens. And you have to judge what you see.
But I like your compromise position. That was actually my conclusion. What I wanted to say is, it's not the FEI, it's not the organizer. It should be a mix. It should be the organizer who invites, but also that the national federations can try to the organizers of the bigger CDIs to say, listen, or the judges, the national judges, because then otherwise you have the problem. Now the age of 70 is not existing anymore, but then you have the problem that a small group of judges were judging all the big shows, and the younger generation of judges didn't have a chance to really prove that they have knowledge, that they are good, because it was quite the same group, you know.
Yes, I agree with that. I agree with that. And we need to give space to the younger generations. That's for sure.
Yeah. And that means that the organizer, like me in one of the biggest national shows, I get asked, cannot this judge please judge at your show because he needs to get experience.
Yeah.
But okay, one thing is very important, because I'm joking a lot about it, and of course you know me for a longer time. I always have an opinion, but I don't want that gets in a wrong touch. I really think that we all are in the same boat and try the best, but it's also important that we say our opinions. And I think, from what my understanding was, talking to a lot of judges worldwide, that the judges are also not happy with the judging situation that it was. I mean, we don't have to talk about the Europeans in Aachen, or we had some shows where, for whatever reasons, it didn't fit so good. And then the discussion comes again, stretching high and low, who invites, what can we do? Do we need 7 or 5? With the 7 or 5, I have a clear opinion. Why changing a good system with 5? It was a good system. It was working. I still don't understand, except that the riders have to pay more than the organizers, and through the organizers find out why 7 and why rotation. In a soccer game, also not in the first and in the second half comes a second referee. And that's one more point. I love soccer. Yeah. Oops, I lost you a little bit. Can you hear me?
Yes, hold on a second. This is when now. Yes, I can hear you.
I love soccer, but the soccer clubs would never say we just play a soccer game just 2 times 30 minutes, because then it's better for interruption, for advertising, and for the media. The soccer game is 90 minutes. Come back to your before question about shortening the Grand Prix all the time. We must stop that. We look for media excuses and not true arguments through the IOC. Our sport is our sport, and we need time for that sport. For that sport, we need to have independent judges. We have to keep the system that it's a chance to be independent. In soccer, we have professional judges that get per month, 5,000-6,000 euros to play, to go to 4 soccer games. The referees, sorry, not the judges, the referees. Maybe that's an idea. I think in America you have already better paid judges that are getting more money. I don't know. I mean, you can, on the other hand, not pay a judge no money and just coffee and expect everything, you know?
I think the idea of professional judges is very interesting, and we have to discuss that. But I think you mentioned something that is very important that I totally agree with, and I think is the importance of discussions. With open discussions, friendly but open discussions with trainers and riders. I think that is very important. I mean, sometimes you sit together, like, you know, you're there in a competition and 2 or 3 judges and 2 or 3 riders, trainers are watching a competition. And those small moments you can talk like, okay, how much would you give that to that extended trot? And then you discuss. But that is good, but we should, in my opinion, we should try to find more FEI organized forums to have those discussions, which are good for everybody, good for the riders, the trainers, and good for the judges. I have some questions now.
Okay.
There's one that says, my question is going back into time. If I am not mistaken, the old masters rode mainly on the curb, which required a very good control of hands and independent seat. At what moment did this tendency change towards riding on the snaffle bit?
So one reason, and I think we forgot this a little bit, is for sure the good development of the breeding. You know, in the old days, it was the biggest success to have your horse through the pole. It were horses working on the field and ridden in the evening, big horses, strong horses, which the rider and the trainer were thinking, how do we get the horse through the pole? That was first the biggest step. Then we had a big development in the breeding. Now you have horses that are almost too hot for the sport. Before they were not really too hot. They were just too lazy, too strong, too much up. The change of riding more on snaffle rein than on the curb rein, I cannot say exactly a certain date when it changed. But I can tell you from the old pictures that I saw from my father. My mother made a lot of old videos after the Second World War when you really had horses from the type that you don't need the curb to ride them from the pole. On the other hand, the description of the old masters, and we talked about them all, fine riding from the French culture. I don't think that they rode on the curb just because the horses were too strong, because they also looked like elegant horses on the pictures. So there must be some argument why they did it, but sorry, I cannot tell you which argument.
Okay. I have one question here that is for me. I'll see if I can answer. Cesar, what do you find has changed from the way you learn to ride in the classical military tradition to how you're expected to judge competitive dressage today? Well, I think my answer to that, I will start by saying that I had to learn, like Michael was saying, for 1 year. When I was 12 years old, I had to sit on a horse without stirrups and reins for at least 1 year until I was able to jump like 80 centimeters to a meter. So that is very different from what we see now at riding schools. In the way of judging, well, with them, I didn't learn anything about judging. It was just riding. So I started learning like from Coronel Nibleus in '78 when he started coming to Colombia and took many clinics around the world. I don't know if that answers your question. And Michael, I have another one for you. At what moment do people realize in the different countries that they have to improve the breeding of the horses and like stop using thoroughbreds or cross thoroughbreds Arabian horses and move into higher quality of warm bloods for the sport?
Paul, that's sorry, also a different question for me to answer. I'm everything but not a breeding expert. I can just see through the sport and through the competition the change of the breeding. And of course, when you see a lot of young horse classes for a long time, it's not the influence of the thoroughbred. I think that would cut the whole breeding story too short. The influence of blood in the warm bloods, if it's in Holland, Germany, Denmark, Sweden, that all came, you know. And to have now a German horse, you cannot say it even anymore because we have European horses. And we have the semen from the European stallions in America, born in America, but bloodlines from Germany. So for me, it's not a question of just thoroughbreds, Arabian horses. For me, I think the breeders were smarter than a lot of riders and trainers. They were really looking for rideability and elegance. Because you can sell rideability, you can sell, and elegance you can sell from a filly on up to a 3-year-old. And then, yeah, the experts came together and breeding this line to this line. But again, rideability and elegance from the exterior were the keys. And with this came the change, easier riding through the pole, less effort with a lot of horses, more excitement and hot horses than before. And this came, I think, the last 30, 40 years.
Okay. Well, Michael, thank you very much. This was certainly a very interesting afternoon for us, an evening for you. I think we have a lot of things to discuss. Next time you and I are at the same time in Florida, for sure we'll have to share a coffee, see books, and discuss things. I think it's very important that we find a way to discuss among trainers and judges and riders. That's very important for the benefit of the sport. It's not, just to make my point or your point, but for the good of everybody. Thank you very much. This was very interesting.
I must say, your words for the closing it, exactly what I liked, the discussion. And for me, it was an honor to be invited and part of it, because I followed it through the internet. And in the difficult times, besides horses of Corona, no shows, some of family and friends are involved, and lockdown. And then it was a super idea what you did, to make a series of talks, different topics, just to educate people, to entertain people. But as you said before, the most thing is, let's talk. And when we talk, we get somehow something's better. It was a pleasure from Germany to be part of your series of talking. Cesar, thank you very much. And to the audience, the ones that are still there, thank you very much for listening to us. Thank you.
Michael, thank you a lot. And if you have friends or family that want to come and participate here, I'm talking about Ingrid.
Yeah.
If she is interested, and any other friends that you have, that I'm sure you have a lot of friends that know a lot and could help us a lot with this program, it would be great. Thank you again, and thank you everybody for being with us tonight. Have a good night, and
thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you.